Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to get our hands a little dirty, you know? We're diving into the world of brazing.
Really fascinating stuff. We've got some great resources to dig into.
Yeah, RoleCatcher, they've got that in-depth career guide thing, right? Plus, we've got our hands on some interview tips, and get this, even some insights on AI and how it can, like, boost your job application. Wild, right?
It's amazing how much AI is changing things.
For real. But, okay, back to brazing. When we say brazier, paint me a picture. What are we actually talking about?
Well, think about it like this. You're taking pieces of metal and you're joining them together.
Okay, sounds pretty straightforward so far.
It is, in principle. So you're using heat and a filler metal, often brass or copper, and that heat, we're talking high temperatures here, hot enough to actually melt that filler metal.
So it's kind of like gluing, but with molten metal.
Exactly. It flows between the pieces, and then as it cools down, creates this super strong bond.
So it's like soldering's way more intense, cousin.
Gotcha. Now, the guide we got, it mentions all these different metals. Braziers work with aluminum, silver, copper, gold, even nickel. I don't know why, but I just pictured, like, steel. Why so many different metals?
It all depends, you see.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're working on, the specific application, and the properties of the metal.
Makes sense.
You wouldn't, for instance, use the same technique on a delicate piece of jewelry as you would on, say, a massive construction beam, right?
Yeah, true.
And you know, this variety, it actually means that brazing, it's used in a ton of industries. Construction, for sure, but also manufacturing, automotive repair, even art.
Whoa, hold up. Art. Never would have pegged brazing as being used in art. There's a creative element to this. The guide even mentioned artistic expression. Is that something you've seen in the field?
Oh, absolutely. It's there. It's maybe not the first thing that pops into your head when you think art.
Definitely not.
But a brazier, they need incredible precision, a really deep understanding of the materials they're working with. So it's more than just like heating stuff up.
Way more. It's like they're sculptors, in a way. But instead of chisels and hammers, they're using heat and these filler metals to achieve these really specific shapes and joins.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. This could be a good path for someone who likes working with their hands, got an eye for detail. So, speaking of paths, let's talk about the career path itself. What does that progression look like for someone who's, interested in brazing?
So generally it starts with an apprenticeship. Learning the ropes, or a junior brazier position. You're assisting those more experienced braziers. You're taking on more responsibility gradually.
Working your way up, paying your dues.
Exactly. And then as you gain that experience, you might move into an intermediate brazier role, where you're independently operating the equipment, troubleshooting problems. You're making more of those critical decisions, like the filler metals, the heating methods, important stuff.
Choosing the right filler metal, that sounds pretty crucial. What all goes into that? How do you even begin to make that decision?
It all comes down to understanding those metals, how they react to that heat, what they're made of. You need a filler metal with a lower melting point, right, than the base metals you're trying to join.
Okay, that makes sense.
But, and this is important, it also has to create a really strong bond. Like, let's say you're working with aluminum. You'd probably use a filler metal that contains silicon. Helps improve the flow and strength of that joint.
So there's a real science to it?
Yeah.
But also that artistic touch, right? When you're actually applying that heat, making that clean, strong joint, it's a career that needs both technical skills and a bit of creativity. That's pretty cool.
You got it. It's a real balance. And then as you move into, say, a senior brazier role, you might even be designing your own brazing techniques. For specific projects, imagine like creating a custom part for a vintage car restoration.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe developing a new process for joining complex components in some aerospace equipment. That's the mastery.
That's amazing. So they're kind of like blending science and art to create something totally unique. Speaking of unique, I'm curious about these different brazing techniques. I've heard of something called torch brazing. What is that exactly?
Torch brazing, that's one of the most common techniques. And it's really versatile. Basically, you're using a handheld torch to heat the base metals and then melt the filler metal.
Right, and the torch, that's usually...
Usually fueled by oxygen and acetylene. It's a potent mix.
Got it.
It's incredibly precise, though, and it allows braziers to work on all sorts of projects, from those small repairs to larger fabrications.
There's that precision again. It's got to be satisfying seeing those clean joints come together. But I'm sure it's not always easy, right? Like, what are some of the challenges, even at that junior level, that a brazier might face?
Oh, yeah. Definitely not always a walk in the park. Even at that junior level, lots to learn. And a lot of responsibility, let's not forget that. You're dealing with high temperatures, specialized equipment. One thing that comes to mind is mastering that heat application. It's tricky.
Yeah, too much heat, too little heat. It's got to be a tough thing to learn.
It is. Too much heat, you damage the metal. Too little, and that bond won't be strong enough. It's all about finding that balance.
A delicate dance with a blowtorch, basically.
Pretty much. And then on top of that, you've got the challenges of the work environment itself.
Right. It's not like you're in a climate-controlled office.
Exactly. Often working in the heat, sometimes in tight spaces, around fumes, sparks, you name it. Safety is absolutely crucial. Can't overstate that.
Makes total sense. It's not just about knowing the techniques, but also being aware of your surroundings, right?
Yeah.
Following those safety protocols. Speaking of which, the guide mentioned some certifications. Certified welder, certified brazier. What's the deal with those?
Those certifications, super important in this industry. They show you've got a certain level of knowledge, the skills, and that you're serious about safety, which is huge.
Right, like a badge of honor, in a way.
Kind of, yeah. Like, to become a certified brazier, you usually need, let's see, a combo of hands-on training, and then you have to pass an exam. Covers things like those safety procedures, different brazing processes, knowing your materials, all that good stuff.
So it's like proving your expertise, showing employers, hey, I'm serious about this.
Exactly. And those certs, as you move up in your career, they can really make a difference, open doors to those more specialized roles, higher paying positions, so it's worth it to get them.
For sure. So we talked about the junior brazier tasks. What about the intermediate level? What are some challenges they might bump into as they take on more, responsibility?
At that level, it's less about mastering the basics and more about problem solving, being able to adapt on the fly. Like they might have to figure out why a braze joint failed. Why didn't it hold? Could be the materials they used, the heating process, even the design of the joint itself. It's a whole other ballgame.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, figure out what went wrong here.
Right. And they might also be training, mentoring those newer braziers, making sure everyone on the team is up to date, using the latest techniques, following all those safety protocols.
So there's a leadership element starting to come into play there. It's not just do your own work, it's make sure everyone's doing good work.
You got it. And as you gain even more experience, you might be troubleshooting more complex problems, maybe working with engineers, improving those existing brazing processes, or even developing new ones. And that's where we get to that senior brazier level. Leadership, problem solving, absolutely essential.
So you could be managing teams, dealing with budgets, even working one-on-one with clients.
Absolutely. Understanding what they need, developing those custom brazing solutions.
Wow. Sounds like a ton of variety in the types of projects a brazier might end up working on throughout their career. Any examples come to mind? Things that really show, like, this is how broad this field is.
Oh, tons. Think about it. You've got braziers working on those huge infrastructure projects, right? Bridges, pipelines, the works. Their work, it's literally holding these structures together.
No pressure.
Right. But then on the flip side, you have braziers working on these super intricate pieces, maybe jewelry, restoring antique furniture, where every detail, every millimeter matters.
It's two completely different worlds.
And everything in between, automotive parts, HVAC systems, musical instruments, the list just goes on and on.
It's amazing to think, like, how many everyday things, how many objects have probably been touched by a brazier at some point. When they were being made, it gives you this whole new appreciation for that skill, the craftsmanship that goes into these things. It's like a hidden world.
It really is amazing when you stop and think about it. All this stuff we rely on every single day, and we don't even realize it's all thanks to brazing.
That's true.
But let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about the career path itself. What's the job market actually look like for braziers these days? Well, the good news is skilled trades in general, they're in high demand.
That's good to hear.
And brazing is no exception.
Really?
A lot of industries out there, they're facing a real shortage of qualified braziers. So that means good news for anyone with the skills, the right certifications. There are opportunities out there.
Okay, so that's reassuring, especially with, like, everyone talking about automation, robots taking jobs, all that. It seems like this is a field where, human skill, that human expertise, it still matters a lot.
Oh, absolutely. You can't just program a robot to do this stuff.
Yeah.
You need that precision, that problem solving, the ability to adapt to a million different scenarios. That's what makes a skilled brazier so valuable.
So for someone listening right now thinking, okay, this is speaking to me, what would you say? What are some steps they could take to, I don't know, test the waters, Maybe get some hands-on experience, see what it's really like.
Best way, look for some local workshops,
Okay, yeah.
classes, that sort of thing.
Like at a community college, something like that.
Exactly. They often have intro courses, welding, breezing, all that. It'll give you a taste, get
Yeah,
you familiar with the basics, the safety stuff. It's a good starting point.
that makes sense. And then I'm guessing there are probably apprenticeships available too, right?
Yeah.
For someone who's like, all right, I'm all in, let's do this.
Oh, for sure. Apprenticeships are amazing. You're learning on the job, real world experience. And importantly, you've got those experienced braziers guiding you, showing you the ropes. And you know what? Don't discount networking. That's huge.
Reach out and connect with people.
Exactly. Local shops, industry events, talk to people in the field. You'd be amazed how many people, experienced folks, are willing to help out, share their knowledge. You just have to ask.
Networking. It's
Yeah.
everything.
It really is.
Now, before we wrap things up here, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. Or should I say the blowtorch in the room? The interview process. We talked about interview prep, but what are some of the questions a brazier might get hit with in an interview? What are those interviewers looking for?
Well, they're going to want to know you've got the fundamentals down pat.
Like the basics?
Safety procedures, different techniques, how to pick the right filler metal for the job. That's a big one.
Makes sense.
But it goes beyond just, regurgitating facts. They want to see how you think.
Problem solving, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Attention to detail, that willingness to learn and grow, a lot of it is about your attitude, your approach.
Showing them you're serious.
Yeah, like a common question. Tell me about a time you faced a challenge on a project. How'd you overcome it? They want to hear about that thought process, your troubleshooting skills.
Prove you can handle the heat.
Literally and figuratively.
I love it. This has been awesome. We've gone from sparks and metal to artistry and career paths, all in one deep dive.
It's been a pleasure. It's a field that deserves way more attention, more appreciation, for the skill, the artistry, everything that goes into it.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, if you're feeling even a little spark of curiosity, don't ignore it. Whether you're thinking about a career change or just like fascinated by this whole world of skilled trades, just take that first step.
Couldn't agree more.
Do a little research, reach out to someone. Who knows what can happen?
Yeah, there are so many incredible careers out there. You just have to find the right fit.
Well said. And who knows? Maybe we'll deep dive into another one next time. Until then, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.